Welcome back. Now we look at some key elements in South Africa's budget, which was presented on Wednesday, and we saw that the budget was revised. We saw a revised economic growth, cutting budget deficit, and addressing the electricity, power issues. Crime and corruption were one of the key highlights of the midterm budget in South Africa. Now, Matt Kindiger, practice leader, Sub-Saharan Africa, Frontier View, provides more insights as to what this means for the economy and what these cuts also mean for the general public. Matt, it's good to speak to you today.
Hi, thanks for having me on the program today.
Now, so what does the budget, we saw what the minister did on Wednesday, but what does the budget mean for the government spending and investment plans?
So I would say actually the budget speech on Wednesday is mildly positive for investment and spending over the next couple of years or so. And this is because the government has quite significant breathing space as a result of much stronger revenues than it previously anticipated. And this is a direct result of higher tax revenues from commodities. So we know commodity prices are very high at the moment. South Africa is a major commodity producer, so it's directed, it has benefited public finances directly. What this means for investment and spending plans, so we are going to see slightly better than previously expected spending increases, budget allocations for functions and departments such as education, healthcare, law enforcement, but also infrastructure projects, especially road and rail infrastructure projects. So we're going to see probably, better annual increases for budget allocations for those departments. But I would emphasize it's not going to be a spending bonanza for government departments. The government is still expected to face, the budget deficit is still expected to average about 5% of GDP this year and next year, and public debt as a percentage of GDP is probably going to peak at about 72% next year. So even though revenues are relatively upbeat, the government is still under quite a lot of pressure to cut its budget deficit and stabilize public finances over the course of the year. So we're not going to see massive spending increases in our view.
Well, we saw in the budget presentation that they mentioned that they made some sort of bailout for Eskom. Does this mean that Eskom will no longer have problems? Because we're seeing that they're still planning to have power cuts. But this money that the government is going to hand out to them, how does that help Eskom in the near term?
Yeah, so it certainly is a major lifeline for Eskom. So Eskom's debts are estimated, were estimated to be about 10% of total public debt in South Africa. So what the government has decided to do is to take up to 2/3 of Eskom's debt and put it onto the government's budget balance sheet. What this means is that Eskom will have a lot more capacity to invest in improving infrastructure, spend more money on maintenance, hire more skilled staff, procure very expensive coal at the moment. So certainly it will help Eskom's performance in the short to medium term, but it's certainly not going to solve all the problems that the country is facing from a power shortages perspective. It's very clear that South Africa still has a very large power deficit, and by the president's own admission just a couple of months ago, he expects load shedding to continue well into 2024. So certainly a positive move for Eskom, but it won't solve the power shortages at the moment that the country is facing.
How will households, individuals be able to, how would they be affected by this budget? How would they be?
Yes, certainly. So this is a very important question because there was quite a lot of anxiety that the government was going to be increasing income taxes, payroll taxes, and also cutting social benefits because of squeezed public finances over the last couple of years. But two major benefits households will see two major benefits. One is high-income households will benefit from the government's decision not to increase income taxes nor introduce any new payroll taxes over the next couple of years. So this is very important because there's a very large, wealthy, high-income household segment in South Africa, and they're very important for consumer spending. The other is the lowest income households will benefit from the government's decision to extend the social relief grant payments of 350 Rand per month over the next year. This was first introduced during COVID, but the government has decided to extend this. This provides a lifeline for the lowest income households. But the middle-income household groups are probably going to be the worst off, and this is because many middle-income households rely on the public sector as their main source of employment, and the government has decided to raise incomes or civil servant wages by only 3% this year. And this is far below inflation, which is running closer to 8 or 9%. So we're going to see middle-income households, especially those that rely on civil servant jobs, to be squeezed over the next year or so. So on balance, relatively positive, although there are some households that may find that their incomes are a bit more squeezed.
Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks for. I hope you keep tracking what's happening in South Africa. As I mentioned earlier, Eskom has planned to suspend power cuts for the weekend due to lower demand of electricity, and we'll see how that pans out, if they continue with that or if it remains permanently suspended. Thank you so much, Matt Kindiger, Practice Leader, Sub-Saharan Africa Frontier View, for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thanks, my pleasure.